Good morning, everyone, and welcome. This is Joe Scarice, your co-host and co-founder of the Creative Birth Strategies podcast here on Clubhouse Live every Sunday morning, Eastern 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, providing education, networking, and strategy. So we'll get started here in just a couple of minutes. We're going to invite some peeps in and get rolling here with another great week of real estate endeavors rolling into the new year. Kind of crazy. Real busy time, so I'll be getting people set up here. Just give me a couple minutes, and I will get started here, and we'll overview the this past crazy month. We'll do a little recollection of the month, a little bit, on what took place. A lot of year-end, month-end insanity. Just good stuff. So we'll get started here in just a few minutes, and we'll get. Give me 1 minute right there. And we'll get started here. So my name is Joe Scarice. I am the co-founder, co-host of the Creative Birth Strategies podcast. And again, we're here live. We're the only clubhouse room that actually has a live podcast, live website. Um, we offer educational courses. We offer worksheets to better educate the investor. So we're here to provide a consistent theme of insight and education toward your successes in real estate. We really want to hear about your stories. We really appreciate your success stories. Um, and we're really now we're getting into events where we're providing educational events on a monthly basis, and we'll talk about that as well in the next few minutes. So let's start off with the subject that we're going to be discussing today: mistakes, best practices, insight on closing deals. So we'll talk about mistakes. I'll talk about some personal mistakes. We'll try to get some mistakes and best practices from others. And we'll dive into some of the insight of the week and some predictions going into the new year. So first, I want to thank our sponsors as always. I want to thank Mr. Yordell Perkins of Perkatech, who provides our educational uh, software, our social media, just everything behind the scenes for the podcast, for the social media analytics and branding. I'm going through a full rebrand right now, and I consult with Yordell almost on a daily basis, making sure things are going in the right direction. Website design, flyers, marketing, branding. We're looking at every single thing to just make sure we're out there in front of the right people, providing the right information. I want to thank Miss Linda Pelagas, who is part of Realty 411, who's a part. She runs a national publication throughout the country for real estate professionals and services, as well as national events. And we've partaken and partnered in quite a few of them over the past couple of years. I want to thank MB Capital, where I'm a referral partner, providing unsecured business lines of credit for real estate professionals and real estate services throughout the country. And I want to thank Lendmark, where I'm a senior loan analyst providing asset-based lending nationwide in the DSCR, fixed to rent, fixed to flip, new construction, multifamily, mixed use, blanket loans, and portfolio lending for investors throughout the country, providing advisory and strategy as well. And then I want to thank our new alliance going into the new year with Elite Deal Makers, where we're now holding and hosting events here in Philadelphia, South Jersey, and Lehigh Valley, and soon northern New Jersey as well. So we're kind of figuring it out as we go. I don't think North Jersey will start probably till second quarter, but we're rolling out Philadelphia, rolling out South Jersey, rolling out Lehigh Valley. I can tell you the events that we got coming up as well in the month of January. We have a Health is Wealth in Real Estate on Monday night at Restore Wellness, which is starting off our health guide to the new year. We'll be there at 6:30 to 8:30, a little networking, a little with touring and doing a little cryotherapy or hyperbaric chamber or leg wraps, but we'll be there from 6:30 to 8:30 tomorrow evening. Then we have January 11th, where we are providing asset-based lending fundamentals workshop, where we're going to teach you how to underwrite your deals, give you the insight, create the opportunities, not just for you to be the investor, but also to be the lender. We're going to teach you how to white label and market yourself as a direct lender, working with Lendmark and working with myself as your account executive. And then January 13th, we have Kevin Gillen, who is a chief economist for Drexel University, providing insight on the state of market in Philadelphia at our offices at Newbold Exchange. That's Monday evening, the 13th. And I know I do have a speaking engagement on the 27th up in Lehigh Valley for John Wargo and Matt Morrow and one of their events at a beautiful winery out in Orfield. I'll be providing CE accreditation, 3 credits for licensed real estate agents in the state of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, and a couple other states that I'm putting on there too as well. But we're providing accreditation in asset-based lending fundamentals. Very excited about that. So we've got a great month ahead. Going into the new year, home pricing remained and houses market really was a mixed blessing. Okay. We really had a really crazy end of the year. Values really didn't come back. Values didn't really come down. Rates moved up. Inflation moved up. Cost of living moved up. Unemployment and job reports kind of stayed still, where, annual growth kind of worked okay. But, what can help affordability going into the new year here? Home prices could fall, rates could fall. I don't see rates falling. I see maybe prices falling. Home acquisition, I think it's an investor play going into this rest of this year. I don't see rates coming down anywhere below 6.5%. Hopefully, sometime by the second quarter. Builders could build more homes and apartments. I see that as a faster pace. I see a lot of multifamily development coming back online. I see a lot of conversions of office buildings and retail. And then obviously we got to look at expenses. Expenses are still astronomical and the cost of living is still economical. Rates closed out around 7.10 on the 30-year on Friday, which was pointing up. I just don't see rates coming down right now. I think the commercial rate now is hovering around, I'd say, somewhere between 6.875 and 7%. So we're kind of dead even with the 30-year based on the 10-year Treasury, and we follow kind of the 5-year Treasury. So interesting, watch that market as well. And then some articles that caught my eye this week. I saw this article I thought was pretty funny. Home investors pull back as rates and prices remain high. I don't see this. I see consumers holding back and pulling back as rates and prices remain high. I see investors looking to get as much cash in their hand so they could leverage to buy more investment properties. And the rate will be relative based on how they buy. Home consumers are not looking at that. They're looking at a 7% plus rate, inflated values, a dead stock of inventory out there. I just don't see that happening. I see home investors accelerating in this market. So I thought the article was pretty funny. I kind of beat up on the article a little bit on the post. Don't know where that was going, but a very interesting article this past week. Another interesting article, moving on, looking at 2024 migration trends. So where were the top 14 cities that where there was one way going to, not going back to on U-Haul? So number 1 was Dallas, Texas. Number 2 was Charlotte, North Carolina. Number 3 was Phoenix, Arizona. Number 4, Lakeland, Florida. Number 5, Austin, Texas. Number 6, Nashville, Tennessee. Number 7, Raleigh, North Carolina. Number 8, Palm Bay, Florida. Number 9, Houston, Texas. Number 10, Greenville, South Carolina. Number 11, Jacksonville, Florida. Number 12, Tampa Bay, Florida. 13, Charleston, South Carolina. Number 14, Wilmington, North Carolina. This was one way leaving somewhere, going to move and staying permanently. So very interesting markets that they're going to. Growth cities that were in the top 10 in 2024. Ocala, Florida. Fredericksburg, Virginia. Kissimmee, Florida. Lorton, Virginia. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. College Station, Texas. Knoxville, Tennessee. Tukwila, Washington. Johnson City, Tennessee, and Foley, Alabama. So very interesting markets that people are moving to, ones to keep an eye out for, as well from a migration rental report perspective. So our discussion today, let's dive into that real quick, and then we'll go to our moderators. Mistakes, practices, insights on closing real estate deal strategies. So let's talk about some mistakes that are made. And again, I have debates with underwriters, processors, executive management, ignoring the due diligence. Like, do you really know your market? Failing to thoroughly inspect your market, understanding and really reviewing could be costly and surprises at closing. And then neglecting good title searches, having a good title company. Okay. And then poor communication, another mistake, lack of clarity and ignoring red flags. And then financial overreach, stretching too thin when somebody's trying to buy something and they just don't have enough money to come to the deal or have enough in reserves, ignoring the closing costs. And then there's some mistakes made with emotional decisions, getting attached too soon, letting emotions dictate negotiations. Some best practices that you want to keep in consideration going into 25, looking at opportunities for yourself. Strong due diligence, thorough inspections, meticulous title search, clear communication, open and honest dialogue, detail to the contract, sound financial planning, making sure your pre-approval is real with a mortgage, understanding your financial reserves, understanding your financial exposure, professional guidance, working with experienced professionals, seeking expert advice, and some key insights you want to think about. Patience is key. Negotiation is crucial. Protecting your interests and planning for the unexpected, and then celebrating success. I'm calling in from northern New Jersey because I had a pretty tough 2024 month of December with month-end close. So I decided to give myself a little breather and dive into just giving myself a little break with family and friends, and when had dinner and kind of enjoyed myself up in the New York City, Big Apple area. So gave myself a little celebration for myself. So these are some things to think about when mistakes and practices and insights and going into 25, what can you do differently in your market, in your business, in who you're trying to talk to, who you're trying to get in front of? These are things you need to think about as this market shifts. We'll go to Mr. Bob Chessick. Good morning and welcome. Brief overview who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning: mistakes, practices, insights on closing real estate deal strategies. Bob? Bob is silent, Bob. Can't hear you, Bob. I was going to come in and out. There you go, Bob. Let's go. Bob?
Joe, are you there?
Yep. Go right ahead.
Got that red bar of doom that said there was an error. Please try again. So anyway, my name is Bob Chessick, president of Chesspin Corporation, doing LLC and corporation formations for over 22 years. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not here to give you legal advice. And I think probably the best one that I could, best thing I could think about it would fall under the best practices category. Sorry, I seem to have the hiccups here this morning. And this is a question that I get very commonly, especially from new real estate investors, but even some seasoned ones, if they've bought a couple properties, and this is something that creeps up on them. The question is, should I form the LLC before I buy the property or afterwards, or does it not matter? And the answer to that is, if you have the ability to do it beforehand, you would want to purchase the property directly into the LLC. Now, a couple of best practices with regards to that. The LLC, while it does not need to be formed in the same state where you live or the same state where the property is, there are business reasons people choose states like Delaware, Wyoming, and Nevada. It still, in most cases, must be registered in the state where the property is physically located. So if the idea behind it is, say, you want to buy a property in Florida, but you want to register your LLC in Delaware to keep your name off the public record, that's not going to work, because you're going to have to register the business in Florida as an out-of-state company and do the full public disclosure, which Florida requires. So be careful not to get pulled into that trap. Doesn't mean there might not be another business reason to do it, but don't do it for the sole sake of anonymity, because frankly, there is no such thing in the LLC world. But the other thing is, you want to have it up and running, and the LLC must be up and running, and if required by the IRS, have an EIN number. The rules on getting EIN numbers for single member LLCs have recently changed. or at least shall we say have been clarified or revised, might be a better way to put it. So not every single LLC necessarily needs an EIN, but that's a whole other discussion that we could do a separate room on. But the bottom line is you cannot purchase the property and put the title or the deed into an LLC that does not exist. And the other thing is watch your lead times on these, because different states have vastly different timelines on this. Just a couple of examples. Just from ones I've looked up. New Jersey, you can generally get an LLC you can get the paperwork the same day, and it's verifiable 1 business day later. Pennsylvania currently is about a week and a half behind on processing. Delaware, if you don't expedite, you're looking at a month. Maryland, even if you expedite, you're still at 7 to 10 business days, and up to 2 months if you don't. So the timelines and those are just a couple of bordering states. The timelines are all over the grid, and it varies state by state. So best practices are with LLCs, have it up and running before you purchase the property and put it directly in if that's your intention. Otherwise, you may wind up having to pay the transfer tax over again, depending on the jurisdiction you're in. Again, that was not intended as legal advice, just practical business owner suggestions and best practices tips. Joe, I turn the microphone back to you.
Bob, real quick, what was the common denominator mistake that you saw made by real estate investors in 24 that just kept popping up? Just one mistake. And what was one best practice that you saw in 2024 by real estate investors going into 25?
Okay, so the most common mistake I saw, and it doesn't fall into one specific mistake, but a certain category, and you mentioned it, is not doing your due diligence, not keeping up with your paperwork, not filing your annual reports. I've got a half a dozen customers right now that their LLCs in Delaware are going to be canceled on June 1st because they are multiple years in arrears on the annual reports. And after a while, the state just says, well, guess what? Your company doesn't exist anymore. At that point, the LLC's limited liability shield no longer exists. It's gone. So you have people that that invested all the money into setting this up, and their LLCs basically are going to be closed. So that's the number one mistake I see, is just the failure to do the due diligence and try to take shortcuts to save a buck here and there. The best practice I saw in 2024 going into 2025 comes from the other side of that same coin, and that was people that were contacting me in advance of what they're trying to do to get their real estate empire structured, and this is my favorite, reviewing it with their attorneys and their accountants before pulling the trigger to make sure that the structure that they were looking at makes sense. Some of those people did come from some of the videos that you've uploaded over the years, Joe, from me teaching classes at your various live events. And of course, when I teach something, say in 2021, that might not be necessarily valid in 2025. Rules do change. But the point being that I have been seeing more and more people taking their time and talking to their power team of their attorney and their accountant and making sure that what they're doing makes sense before they pull the trigger. The ones that are just leaping into it and then find out that, oh my God, this actually costs money, they're the ones I'm seeing that are in serious trouble right now. And they're pinching they pinched a few pennies, and they're gonna be out thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars, and in some cases even more. So that's really kind of where I've seen it go. Joe, back to you.
Thank you, Bob. It comes to me when you need to build trust with your power team. You gotta also enhance client satisfaction, not just with your client, but with your power team. You need to be responsive. You need to be accountable. Okay, because you're going to lose that level of respect from your power team if you're not being reliable and consistent, right? So, professional reputation is everything. Okay. I feel like my reputation in the business is I'm a hard worker. I'm determined. I give you direct answers. You might not like to hear them, And I also try to be an active listener now. I try to really dive into active listening and trying to make that personal connection and being very consistent with communication, but also setting boundaries. So like I have a podcast right now with everybody here, right? But I've set the intention that I'm going to have a conversation with a couple people post the podcast. Now, if they can't handle that, well, then they can't. Then it's not worth the cost benefit. But I told them I'm available after 10 o'clock. I'll give them a call and we'll have a follow up discussion real quick. Okay, I set my boundaries. Right, you need to be able to tailor the solutions and addressing the concerns, but also again setting boundaries for yourself so you don't make mistakes and you're present in the conversation. You want to be present in your conversation with everyone. All right, if you're not present and you take a phone call, you could establish a bad relationship right off the bat. You want to kind of avoid bad circumstances. If you're not ready to take the call, just let it go to voicemail. That's probably the best thing to do. Because if you're not prepared, you're going to look incompetent. There's going to be potential confrontation. You might as well just let it go to call. And then when you're in a better place, take that call then. Right? Because sometimes people just don't forget that initial discussion. And again, I what I've done more is when people call me, I just take a minute and let them talk it through so I could better understand what they're talking about. And then I break down their conversation a little more so I can avoid making mistakes with them and taking a better personal practice of working with them presently and then in the future. Travis, good morning. It's been a minute. Brief overview who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning. Mistakes, best practices, insight on closing more real estate deals.
Hey, good morning, Joe and everybody. I'm Travis. I have a real estate brokerage here in the Houston area. I've been focusing on investment properties for more than 20 years now. I just want to go back to the stats that you were reading before for a minute. I was thinking about it as you were talking about the U-Haul statistics. Like, who is it that uses U-Haul to move across the country? If you think about it, right? It's like college kids, people right out of college.
Yep.
Those that really can't afford to pay a mover or don't want to pay a mover. It's not your typical white collar professional who's using U-Haul to move across the country, right? They're either getting relocated by their company and their company's paying for it, or something like that. So, all right, so those cities that you listed. So I'm thinking as an investor, right? So the cities that you listed, those people are either going to be young, out of college, or they're going to be working in the service industry. So, yeah, okay, there's a migration of those kind of people going to those areas. But what about the white collar jobs? What about the people that are, making the higher dollar money? Where are the statistics on that? And those numbers that I've learned in my experience are the most important. So when, you hear about a company moving to the Fort Worth area or Dallas or Houston or somewhere, is it a company that's going to have white collar jobs? Because for every one white collar job, you get 4 service-based jobs. So if you hear about a big company moving like, Tesla or whoever, that means there's going to be a lot more service-based jobs available. And they're the ones using the U-Haul, right? They're using the U-Haul to move. So my point is that, those U-Haul statistics are cool, but what are the real statistics of the higher paying jobs?
Well, it's interesting you say that because I thought the same thing, that it to me it looked like all rental migration discussion. Now I'm looking at the white collar movement because the white collar movement's more remote now. People, the higher executives, they can work remotely and then fly in and out.
Right.
The top markets, in the mountain towns and rural areas is Bozeman, Montana, Bend, Oregon, and Asheville, North Carolina. Now, I get Asheville, North Carolina. I'm not as familiar with Montana and obviously Oregon, but there's big money I know up in Montana. Sunbelt cities are Austin, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, and Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, which all make a lot of sense. And then the mid-sized cities, which make a lot of sense to me as well, is Madison, Wisconsin, Des Moines, Iowa, and Grand Rapids, Michigan. I think Grand Rapids is revitalizing as a strong art scene and a growing tech center. I love Madison, Wisconsin. I'm going back there in May. Growing tech sector. Going to Sunbelt, I think Austin, Texas has a strong tech hub. Nashville, Tennessee is just growing tremendously. So the other ones like Asheville, North Carolina, I kind of get it. And all their airports are becoming extremely vibrant for travel as well. You can get in and out of these markets pretty easily. Just some thoughts behind that.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've learned in investing is when we left the area, right? So I started buying properties in 2001, and in 2005, we went on an investment trip with a group out of Arizona to go to Mobile, Alabama, because that was supposed to be the next hot market that was going to have a boom because of these statistics, right, of the jobs that were coming to the area. And I can tell you, man, if I get that why you talk about these cities, so people can think about, oh, should I go invest in these cities? But it is not easy. If you're going to go to another state, another city, a place that you can't drive to in a couple hours to invest in real estate and think that you're going to be successful. You talk about quite often, Joe, you got to have that power team, and you have to know what those people are capable of, because you're not going to be there. And it's very difficult to have properties in another area where you can't go and look at it and see what's going on. You got to have somebody there, so a team there that can really you can really rely on, that could be your eyes and ears, and has a good grip on what it costs to get things done, or else it'll break you, man. It's tough.
So let me ask you a question. You handle property management in Houston, Texas market. You've obviously invested out of state. You get a lot of, I'm assuming you get a lot of out of state inquiry to manage properties in the Houston market. What has been the biggest mistake, and what has been the biggest best practice that you've seen this past year going to the new year with your clients, potential clients? Like, what's some common mistakes? What's some best practices have you seen?
Mistakes. I think, okay, here's a good example. A guy called me as a referral, and I went and met with him at his property, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to rent it out the way it is. And I was looking around his house, and, the carpet's 10 years old, and some of the walls have funny colors. And I'm like, okay, well, and then he would tell me, well, I don't really have a lot of money, to fix things up. So my advice for people like that right there, he tells me I don't really have a lot of money for this, is don't rent out your house, man. Just sell it. When things come up, how are you going to pay for it? And you can't even get it ready for the market. You're better off selling it. So someone that wants to own a rental property but doesn't have the money to keep it going would be my number one thing to say. Don't do it. You got to have the funds to keep it going. Don't think you're gonna sit back and relax and just collect rent every month, and it's eventually you're gonna live off of this. That's not what's gonna happen. You're gonna take that money, whatever profit you make a month, and just leave it in a bank account. Don't touch it. Don't even think about it, because something along the way is going to break, or a storm's going to come. It's going to damage your house, and you're going to have to pay your 2 to 3% deductible, which is a lot. Let's say your house is valued at $400,000. 2% is $8,000. That means $8,000 of that damage is coming out of your pocket. Right? There's no way around that. Anything else is an insurance fraud. So, I guess that's one of the big things. And number two, if you want somebody you want a company that really knows how to take care of your property, but you're gonna really, all you're looking at is who can do it for the least amount of money, then you're looking at it by, using the wrong metric. Like, just because we might be $50 or $100 more a month than somebody else, is it worth getting this other company that's not really taking care of your house for 50 to $100 a month?
Yeah, I definitely see the biggest mistake is that clients don't look at the cost benefit relationship between spending money on something and avoiding something, or not.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I do agree with that. Like I had a debate with an underwriter just this past week that he was trying to tell me about my market. And I'm like, okay, so who's in this market and where are you located? Well, I'm in Florida. I said, well, how are you telling me that you're more familiar with a market when I'm 30 minutes away from the actual property? Can you explain that to me? And I said, because I just want to know, because then I should move to Florida so I could have more insight like yourself.
Right, yeah.
And he's like, well, I wasn't trying to say that. I said, well, you just told me you're very familiar with my market where I'm 30 minutes away from the place and you're 2,000 miles away. So I just want to make sure we're having the same conversation, or having a conversation with a client. Travis, you know what I get a kick out of? Like, listen, I want people to do really well, but you eat an elephant one bite at a time. You don't own any investment properties. You got good credit, you got money. Own something. Just learn how to hang a picture. You know what I mean? Like, I get a kick out of a lot of the people that go to these big classes and spend $5,000. I think that's the biggest mistake. And then you think they're going to go own a 500 unit multifamily, and because some guy at some class told them they can do that, and they're not going to get there like that way. I think that's the biggest mistake, is taking some of these, land of make believe courses and set ridiculous expectations. Listen, buy a building. Like, learn how to run it like a business. Buy a 4 unit or a 2 unit or a 5 unit or a 10 unit and run it like a business. Build a team around it. Get it working systematically. See what mistakes you're making. Don't be cheap on stuff. Take care of the mechanicals. Fix things as they present themselves. Be proactive. Don't be reactive. Right? Am I missing something in our industry, or is that something that's out of the ordinary?
No, that sounds right. And just by doing that, they're going to learn what things really cost. They might think that to repaint a house costs $2,000 for a 2,000 square foot house. No, it doesn't cost that. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
No, you're going to pay like at least $2 to $3 a square foot.
Do you know how many general contract, like guys that are handymen or just like work, like, button up guys, they are so tired of working with other people because they can't get crap done. They just rather do the work they can do themselves and go home at night. Are you noticing that everywhere in your market? Like the handyman, they don't want a team of 2 guys or gals working with them anymore. They just want to do their work and go home because they don't trust anybody else.
Yeah, that's true, man. One of the guys that I've known now for, my gosh, 20 years, that's what he is. He's a handyman. Then I always ask him, hey, Ernie, why don't you hire more guys? He's like, man, I don't want to deal with that. I just want to go in, get my daily rate, and go home. Okay. And he's happy with that. And that's good. But, he knows how to do a bunch of stuff. But I think the point is that if you're not investing in your backyard, like you said, Joe, you can know your own market just by driving around. Like, what's being built around you, what's being revitalized, what part of your city is changing. Somebody that's somewhere else in a different part of the country, they're not going to know that.
Yeah.
So I think one of my best advices would be start in your own backyard.
Oh, I agree with you. Listen, I'm a big believer of the Reader Digest version of investing. Stay within an hour where you live to start off with. Learn your market so you could share that, as you can compare that to other markets as you grow. That's why, Travis, I travel to various markets because I like to do a comparative. When people ask me about Philadelphia, I tell people Philadelphia County, it's a rental market. The surrounding areas of Greater Philadelphia, could be a blend of rental and flip, depending on where you're at. And it could be a combination of longer term or short term ownership, depending on where you're at. Do I like the South Jersey corridor? Yeah, people want to get out of Pennsylvania. They want to come down into the South Jersey corridor, be closer to the shore. Okay. But yet have convenience back to the cities, the city whereabouts. But this is another thing. My market's no different than other markets. So like I mean, the greater Philadelphia market's no bit different than the greater Houston market. It's urban setting, there's suburban settings, and there's rural settings. I mean,
That's right.
I mean, think about it. You're 2 hours away. You're in the woods outside of Houston, correct? Or
Not even.
Okay, so you're in the desert. Desert or woods. You pick your pick whichever, right? That's the same thing where I'm at. You go up the Pennsylvania Turnpike. You're in the Poconos. You're in the land of nowhere. You know what I mean? So that's only 2 hours away from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest challenge that everybody needs to make is look in the mirror and see what realistic are your capabilities. I think you're a property management company and you're a real estate broker and you're an investor. I mean, what are your goals for yourself and for your business going into the new year? What's some new practices that you're changing a little bit going into the new year, knowing that costs are higher, knowing that the consumer's not buying as many properties to live in, and it's more of a rental market. What are you doing a little differently going into January 2025 that you probably didn't do as much in 24?
So one of the biggest things is I'm changing technology for the software that we use for our management, and I'm going to be trying to get more local clients. So people that own properties in areas that I don't mind going to, and managing those properties for those people that honestly they don't have the time and they don't want to deal with it, but they have the money, to own the property. They know that real estate is a great way to have deductions, to lower your adjusted gross income every year, and have an asset that appreciates. So, and they don't mind when something goes wrong because they have the money to fix it, and they want good properties in good areas that they know they don't have to worry about, people getting robbed or whatever. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on in this year, is looking for those clients. I don't want the one that tells me I don't really have the money to manage, to fix things. I don't want those people anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, you want people that they're I want to work with people that want to work together. Hey, how are we going to do this? How are we going to address this? Right? I mean, that's a much stronger conversation in the real estate space. How are we going to address the opportunity here together? Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's not a bad thought to have going into 25, but I like the technology part. I mean, I'm looking at it. I'm battling with my VA and doing this, doing that, trying different things. I'm actually trying a whole different type of event. It's kind of funny. This Friday, I'm sponsoring an event in Elizabeth, New Jersey at a hotel. I was the youngest employee there back in 1988. I was an opening server of a fine dining restaurant there, and they're having a Chamber of Commerce meeting. And I'm like, should I go there just to attend? Or I'm not going to really get to talk to anybody, because I don't know anybody. So I said, let me just pay the extra $100 for the table, and then people will come to me, and they'll know who I am. They'll know what I'm trying to do there, and maybe I just need to find that one person that I want to get into that market, because I want to get into the Elizabeth, New Jersey market. Who better than try to find other business associates that want to do the same thing?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, so it's an extra $100. I mean, it's 130 to go to the lunch. But I say, you know what? An extra $100 now, everybody has to come to my table. Or if they don't want to come to my table, I know they don't want to work with me. I made an easy equation for myself. I figured it out. And it only took till January 10th of the new year. That's how I look at things. You got to experiment a little bit. It's going to cost a little money, but you got to make those moves. But any final thoughts, Travis, on some things that you want to give anybody advice on, or not even advice, just a suggestion as a real estate investor that they can look into going to 225? Any additional insight before we go on to our next moderators?
I think we touched on a lot of stuff. Really, it's, do you have the money to do it? And it's okay if you don't have it. You can always invest in real estate when you only have a few $100s, right? Like the way that, what's that guy? The guy that owns Amazon, Bezos, set up some way to invest in real estate. You know, that's kind of like crowdfunding.
Yeah.
So there's different ways to do it. But if you want to be a property owner and have write-offs and an asset that appreciates, then yeah, save your money.
No, I agree with you, and I appreciate that. I really do. And Travis, I always thank you coming on here. I know we jab at each other, just having some fun with our Facebook posts, but really appreciate you taking the time on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, thanks.
I haven't seen any steak pictures or any groundhog holes lately, so I'm assuming things are a bit quiet at home.
No, we cooked I just didn't post it. Like our New Year's Eve dinner was really good. And that was some lamb, but it wasn't me cooking it, so it wasn't as good as it could have been.
I get it. Yeah, I just was in the Bronx last night in Arthur Avenue. I never saw so much cheese and meat in my life on one block. So we are having some homemade ricotta today and prosciutto. So I'm very excited about that myself. So
I don't know what that is, but I'm sure it's good.
Oh yeah. It helps out the arteries quite a bit. It'll keep them coagulated. So, but I appreciate your time this morning and thank you, Travis. So listen, we're talking about being effective and being cost effective and being cost benefit, avoiding making mistakes and creating, best practices and insights, setting benchmarks and deadlines and trying to negotiating processes and getting processes in place, getting them to work correctly is key in what we do. And bringing in trusted power team and reevaluating who you're teaming up with and having honest discussions with people. If it's not working out, ask why. Like why it was all working out just a little bit ago. Why is it not working out now? All right. And then sometimes some people just want to say things, like I had people, a couple upset clients text me yesterday. It's Saturday. Like, why? One, you're now interfering in my personal space. And two, I'm not going to get into a heated debate with you on a Saturday where nothing gets accomplished till Monday. So I cordially say, listen, we can't, there's nothing to address what you're trying to address today. We will address it Monday. But I want to let you know, I'm like, well, I'm already aware. So you don't have to go, if you want to keep repeating yourself, that's fine. But I'm done with our conversation for the time being, and I'll talk to you Monday and have a great day. And they kept going, and that's fine. I put it on snooze. Okay, I'm not going to get caught up and lose my mind on a Saturday when things just don't get. That's a mistake. Getting emotionally tied to somebody else's problems or their issues, right? Nothing gets accomplished at 9:30 at night on a call in real estate. I've never seen that ever become accomplished. Nothing ever really works out. You could always just wait to the next day. Get a fresh breath. Let it go. Catch up. Okay. Nothing gets accomplished later in the evening or on the weekends where it gets hostile. Let it go. That's a mistake a lot of people don't realize. Stephen, good morning, and thank you for your patience. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion. Mistakes, best practices, insight on closing more real estate deals.
Hey, good morning, Joe. Look forward to seeing you on Saturday. I'm Steve Franco, investor, broker, landlord, and biggest focus for 2025, at least the first quarter, is bringing agents onto my brokerage firm in Pennsylvania because you have to be licensed as of yesterday to be a wholesaler in Pennsylvania. So if you're not, or you're thinking about going wholesale in PA, give me a call. It's funny, most of what's been brought up was some of what I was going to talk about, but it's interesting that it's all happened to me in the last month. The gentleman that was just on was mentioning, don't cheap out on your property management. We get this in our small, Scranton market almost every week, a client calling up and literally nickel diming. Well, how come you have this $10 fee for this thing? How come you have, and we simply explained to them, listen, these are our fees. You can go to somebody cheaper if you want and get different service. I won't say it's worse, but it probably will be. And, if you aren't ready to spend what it takes to maintain a property, if you aren't ready to spend for the quality of management that you want, then maybe you aren't ready. When the window breaks, you don't actually have to fix it. It can sometimes be, no, it can't be. We're not negotiating that. You have to be ready on the service side, but also on the management side to be willing to spend the money when you're hiring your power team. Yes, you want to be affordable. You're not paying what someone could pay for renovating their kitchen. You're not going to spend 20 grand in Scranton numbers. I can get a kitchen done for three to six. Sometimes that even includes granite. I'm not going to spend what a homeowner would spend for their kitchen because I got to make money. But I'm not going to hire Chuck in a truck for $12 an hour and just hope that things don't blow up, in your face. So you have to be ready to spend choose your power team and work with your power team, whether that be your lender or, your construction crew, your management crew. And the other thing is, it doesn't matter, and this is the property that Joe, you just funded up here. It doesn't matter how well you do your pre-research. It doesn't matter how well you, do your testing and your inspections and your whatever. In the case of this property, I had planned that the sewer was bad, and I had that in my budget because even though Drain Tech said your sewer is fine, you're clear, I'm like, you know what? What if it's not? So, I heard rumor there was, yada, yada. Turns out 10 days after closing, I have to rip out and replace the entire sewer all the way out to the street. And what I'm saying there is you have to do your research. You have to power team, bring your inspectors in, know what you're doing, run your numbers, and also be ready for the stuff that's not on the plan. Now, in this deal, we're still more than well okay because we ran our numbers very carefully and we were ready for it. And it's still doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and it's doing really well. But that was $16,000 that had I not included it going in, had it not fit in the numbers, it could have been hard. And, you also have to remember that when you go to make an improvement to a property, things are going to break. You sink $30,000 into a building when you buy it to turn it around and rent it, and you think you're done, you're probably not. There's going to be something else. And if you haven't run your numbers to prepare your maintenance vacancy management properly to absorb those costs, if you aren't ready with a cash reserve or a line of credit or something to write those checks, the contractors are not going to wait, then those are the things you have to do. There really isn't another option, because otherwise then you're turning into, as I think it was Travis said, well, maybe you're better off selling the property. If you can't keep it right, basically don't keep it. Because one thing I learned early on in doing small market real estate residential investment is if you cheap out, if you say, well, I know the paint's kind of messed up, but somebody will live here, right? I know the flooring, it's got cracks and holes in it. But somebody will rent it. Somebody will rent it. Yeah, the somebody that will rent it is the somebody that's going to ruin your life. They're going to feel disrespected. They're not going to be a quality person, whatever. You're going to end up in a nasty eviction with them and probably have enormous repairs or other costs. Deliver a good product. If that's a low-end college rental, deliver a good low-end college. If that's a high-end, 4-star experience with all the amenities, deliver a really good one of those. Whatever your target is, do it right. Do it safe. Make sure that your 20-year-old self would look around and say on a cheap rental, yeah, I feel safe and comfortable here. And that's all coming down to planning with your power team. And the last thing for me is I'm looking into making some, for me, larger investments this year, maybe not large for other people. And I've looked at a lot of different markets, and I keep coming back to, I don't know those markets. I know here. And if the numbers aren't phenomenally better somewhere else, which Scranton's pretty good numbers-wise, why am I going to go down there, pick a management company I don't know, construction crew I don't know, in a market I don't know, learn new state laws, learn new this, learn new that, when I do as well or almost as well back home. And I know exactly how things are going to work. So if you're not really comfortable in another market, but you want to invest there, invest in an REIT, invest in some sort of fund that somebody else is in charge of. For me, owning something, 5, 6 units far away, Tulsa or some other market, I'd have to do too much work to figure it out. I'm going to stick where I know, unless something else is phenomenally huge. So it all comes down to knowing yourself, knowing your market, and knowing your power team. And for me is knowing that, you know what, I can replace a water heater, but that's not my job. I'm better off hiring to do that. So really, it all comes down to knowing your strategy, knowing your plan, and running your numbers as safely as possible.
Steve, when I think of your market, Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, that whole Northeast Pennsylvania, I always think about clients always thinking their properties are worth more than they should be after renovations. And they think properties are going to appreciate like in other markets. I mean, are you still finding that up there where there's unrealistic expectations of appreciation of renovations to a property to a value, or has that caught up?
I don't think that will ever catch up because for the last I've lived here for almost 30 years, and I've invested here for almost 20. And people have always thought, oh, I'm going to buy here and it's going to appreciate. I'm like, listen, before COVID and except for COVID, we were a 1% to 2% appreciation market. You don't buy northeastern Pennsylvania. Allentown, some friends who invest down there told me that's kind of petered out, but certainly north of Allentown, forget it. It's gone up 30% over the last 2 years. Yes, the world went up 30% over the last 2 years. My feeling here is, and the way I invest is, I'm looking at cash flow up here. Enforced appreciation. I buy a dump, I throw some money into it. Okay, I might pull a trick off there, but I'm not going to sit here and say, I'm right now in downtown Scranton and I'm looking at these doubles that have looked basically the same for the last 30 years, and I'm not going to look at it and say, well, the market's going to ride the roller coaster up from the world's biggest sellers market in the last 30 years post COVID. I don't see the market inflating, and I still see people betting on it. I've sold properties, and as a buyer's agent, I'm telling my clients. As a seller's agent, I'm not. As a buyer's agent, I'm telling them, "You're crazy. Don't buy this. It barely makes money now." Oh no, it's going to appreciate. No, it's not. If it does, you win. If I'm wrong, you win. If I'm wrong and it appreciates, you win. If I'm not, you're right and you're wrong, you lose. This market, people still overestimate the appreciation. They say the railroad's going to come in, which they've been talking about the railroads they got here. I believe this and most flyover markets, probably, I don't know most, but most flyover markets are probably going to be the same roughly in 20 years as they are now in terms of that, cost adjusted value. So I buy markets like this for cash flow. But yeah, I have a lot of clients who come into town and they're like, oh, it's going to appreciate. Like, I'm in New York, everything appreciates. Well, that's New York.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, I just see that. I see that as the biggest mistake up there by out of state or out of area investors that want to come up into your market. That's what I've seen as a common trend in that market. And the appraisal tells the truth, always. What you can't make up comps. I get a kick out of a lot of clients that want to use my appraiser. Like, I want to use this appraiser. He knows the market. So you're telling me somebody else is going to do the appraisal and they're going to make believe comps to make up your value? I'm missing something. Can you help me enlighten me what they're going to do differently? Well, they're going to be more fair. What's more fair? So, I have these debates with individuals. So I appreciate your insight, Steve, and I do look forward to seeing you this Saturday. I think it's going to be we're going to have a nice quality group of people. I'm excited about people that want to learn and listen, and hopefully some of it will sink in the opportunity of also brokering loans as well. So it starts at 10 and it says it goes till 12, but I have a feeling we'll be there till 2 o'clock, I think, with just going over stuff. So I do appreciate you coming down and taking that time to be there for that Saturday. I'm still debating whether we're going to even have something on Friday. I just don't know if there's enough people around that they're just kind of making time for the Saturday morning thing. So if anybody is coming to this event on Saturday, this weekend coming up at my offices with Yordell and myself, one, it's Yordell's birthday. So if you want to bring a nice little gift for Yordell or gift certificate, he'll be there live, videotaping it as well, so we could sing him a little happy birthday, maybe have a little birthday cake. But two, coming on Friday night, so you're well rested. There's a nice hotel not too far away at the Marriott Navy Yard, convenient to the airport or convenient to South Philadelphia where our offices are. So I hope to see you there, Steve, and anybody else as well. So thank you for coming in this morning.
I will tell you that 7 years ago, for Blackman to come in anywhere near it did, I fell off my chair. It's nearly double what it was 7 years ago.
And that's good. And that's good. It's good stuff. So thank you, Steve. Alex, good morning. Thank you for your patience. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to mistakes, best practices, insight on closing more real estate deals.
Morning, Joe. Thanks for having us on and keeping us all accountable for here on Sunday morning. I'm a construction project manager here in the Milwaukee area, and I'll keep it brief. I know we're running towards the end here, but I just wanted to remind everyone when they're looking at deals, evaluating deals in their local markets, to be patient. A lot of times you're going to put in numbers on properties and you're not going to end up getting the properties, but what that allows you to do is that gives you an opportunity to know what your delta was. How far away were you from actually purchasing the property, and where other investors are coming in on these properties in your market. And it's good to keep an open mind on that it is a free market, and you're gonna win some properties and you're gonna lose out on others. And sometimes the best investment is the property you walk away from.
Good stuff. How do you see for yourself as a young man, project management, how do you see that being vital going into 25 for real estate investors in that 1 through 4 investment space? Do you think it's going to become more important, more present, or do you think people are not going to take it serious enough?
Well, I think anytime you're doing any large size project on properties, you need to evaluate whether the investment makes sense. Is it the best use for your dollars? Similar to what Travis was saying earlier, are you going to run out of funds? Is this something you should be taking on yourself, or should you be looking at liquidating the property, whether it be at a loss or profit, and moving on? The construction project with contingencies, and is it something someone else can do at a better price than you can do? How seasoned of a construction management experience do you have?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also mindset. The investor mindset has to be realistic to expectations, whether good, bad, or indifferent, going into 2025. I think this is a very unique opportunity. You have a disgruntled consumer that does not want to own a home. They don't want to own a home. They want you to own the home and take care of them. That is the biggest advantage I've ever seen in my real estate investing career. To know the fact is that consumers don't want to own homes anymore. Affordability, right?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think everyone in the room can somewhat agree the demographic towards what people are willing to do and what people want to do is they just want to live in properties. There are a select amount of people out there that want to purchase a home and fix it up themselves, but I feel like that's a dwindling number.
I think it's in specific areas. I think it's going to be very designated areas. I think the biggest disruptions in 2025, especially from a mistake to a best practice is the economic uncertainty, the interest rate environment, technological disruptions. Okay. Are you going to accept AI and prop tech in your space, or you're not, right? And being technologically savvy, having a long-term and short-term vision, being and continuously learning, Alex, we met what, a year ago, right? And we're still staying in communication. So, and I plan on coming out there again for a week because I like that market and I want to stay familiar with it because I think Wisconsin is a good migration market. That's my personal opinion. I think people want to get the hell out of Chicago, and that's where they're ending up.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And also, you got to take into account, the migrations from other states where there's natural disasters and such things happening.
Yeah. But I appreciate you coming in here this morning, and thank you for your insight. And I want to thank everybody. I really see 25 as a successful real estate investor mindset. You need to have adaptability and agility. You need to be data-driven in decision making. You have to focus on cash flow. I'm touching on what everybody's talked about today. Risk management, long-term vision, continuous learning, technological savviness, your strong network, building relationships with other investors, real estate professionals, and industry experts, right? I have no problem reaching out to people and say, hey, would you like to speak at one of my events and provide some insight? That's going to set that humble pie, that humbleness will set the tone for all your successes going into 2025 and lessen the opportunity to making mistakes. I want to thank our sponsors today. I want to thank Mr. Yardell Perkins of Perkatech, our social media architect. I find him to be our expert on video, podcasting, social media, branding, everything that you're seeing right now. It's really thanks to Mr. Yardell Perkins of Perkatech. I want to thank Linda Pelagas of Realty 411, MB Capital, your unsecured business line of credit program. I want to thank Lenmark, your asset-based lender, Nationwide Lending, where I'm senior loan analyst. And I want to thank our new alliance with Elite Dealmakers, where we have South Jersey, Philadelphia, and Lehigh Valley, and soon to come North Jersey educational events on a monthly basis. And my name is Joe Scarice, co-founder and co-host of this great podcast every Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We were hitting close to 100 podcasts. You could find our website right above, creativebirdstrategies.com. If you want to have a discussion or strategy call and you can't make one of the events coming up in January, or it's something that clicks or resonates with you on the podcast, please reach out to me and we can have a deeper discussion of strategy and opportunities for yourself as well. And in my quote this morning, if your dreams don't scare you, they are too small. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Sunday morning. Great week. We'll see you next Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'll be ending the room in the next 30 seconds. Have a great day.